Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. Uh, I don't know if you can see out the window, but it snowed last night in Grinnell. Like enough that everything's white except for the sidewalks. So it was interesting to wake up to snow. I hadn't expected it. Um, Today we are going to go through a routine that I do personally every morning. One of the things that yoga has been informative for me about is the imbalances in my body and the opportunities for improvement. And so once you're aware of those, then it's your responsibility to step into them and to work in areas that you might perceive as your weaknesses. And this has been really helpful for me, particularly for my back, which I used to sort of just avoid. Like not really sure why, but I no longer do, and my back is really great. So the first thing is laying in your little bed at home or wherever you are. See if you can take advantage of the fact that maybe you don't have I can appreciate you might still have an 8 a.m. class, but perhaps you could figure out a way to linger just a minute in the bed. And here's what I want you to do. When you wake up is just to roll onto your back and maybe covers under your thighs. I just want you to extend your knees up overhead and point and flex your feet. So maybe you won't be able to, have your knees extended. Certainly first thing in the morning, this feels very different than it does for me now. And now I'm just making some circles with my ankles. And then maybe just bringing your knees in towards your chest. It's nice to sort of give your knees a hug. And then rolling onto your side, making your way out of bed. Okay, so I do that in the morning. It helps me just check in with my physical body. Once I get to my mat, I like to check in with my hips first. This is an area of growth for me, and I find this Z position we've done in class. So the front shin, so I've got my right leg in front, and I want this front shin parallel to the front of my mat, or whatever, just your imaginary mat if you're on a carpeted floor, or maybe your towel if you're there. The back thigh, the left thigh, is parallel to the right shin. And I want sort of a 90-degree angle at both knees. My ankles are flexed, which means my toes are being pulled up toward my shins. So take a second here just to get here. So I, with tented fingers, am kind of giving myself support. I have to consciously relax my left glute because it wants to guard, because this internal rotation for my left hip is a lot. And my glute is not certain that this isn't a threat. So one way I can send the message to my nervous system that this is okay is to breathe. So I'm going to come into breathing in and out through my nose. And as I do that, I can sort of shift my weight back toward the back of my mat just a little bit. If this is still way too much input for your left hip, it's okay to lean to the right or to be leaning forward. If this hip starts to cramp, which mine sometimes does, you just want to bring it out and maybe go left to right and just give it a second. Again, this is yoga therapy. We're getting into the tissue here. So I'm in this position, and my intention here, I relax my left glute. I'm sitting up tall. If you have blocks or books, you might have them here for support if you need to raise the ground. And then I want to work a little bit into this internal rotation for my left hip. So I could do that, one, by just doing a little bit of side bending to the left. Maybe I don't even want to lift my arm overhead because that's too long of a lever. Maybe I just want to lean. I have to, again, consciously think about relaxing this hip. Another thing you might do is to add a little bit of rotation as if I was going to turn and set an imaginary ball on my left ankle. And I want to just come in and out of that. So just a little bit in and out. And again, what this is getting me to do is shift my weight. You might feel on your pelvis, the weight is on your right hip, on the right side of your pelvis. I'm just trying to, could I get my left sit bone to touch the ground? Mine doesn't, incidentally. Yours doesn't have to. Maybe it does. That's groovy. Either way, so I'm doing a few of these, maybe 3 or 4. Okay, so now I'm back to the front. If I was tight in my right hip, I'm in this position that might be familiar to you from pigeon pose. So with tented fingers, I could bring my sternum square to the front of this right shin and slowly, as if I was going to lift my sternum over this shin, come forward. Remember, I don't want to do this. I don't want to round my back. What I want to do is have a long spine here. And so you might have your palms flat. When you get to that first point of resistance, then you want to pause. Again, I consciously relax my left hip. I'm relaxing through my right hip. I'm soft through my shoulders. I invite the breath to help give the signal to my nervous system. Everything's okay. You should have no pain in this knee or this ankle, and you might pull your toes back toward your shins if you have any discomfort here. So there, I'm going to come out of this. I'm going to, again, make tented fingers. I find my pelvic brace as I come up. You could stay there longer. Lots of people like that stretch. Before I move from this position, I'm going to ground my fingertips, and I want to do some strengthening in my back hip. So I'm going to pick up my back heel and set it down. I normally do 30 repetitions of this. So I lift and lower, and you might sort of see that grimace on my face because this is not an easy movement. I don't have a lot of strength. I'm at end range of movement. And I don't really do this movement a lot, this internal rotation of my hip. So these muscles are like, what is going on? I also often feel a little crampy in my hip when I start to do this, and I'm okay with that. Like, I want to be on that edge of like, I'm doing enough to give an input, right? So I'm on the edge of that. Might want to cramp. I can feel the muscle really working. And then I'm going to pause, slide this left hip up, and then I want to come onto my back on my elbows and just bring my knees left to right. So I'm just sort of letting my pelvis kind of re-find some balance here. Often my back will release when I do this, and by that I mean it will make this little sound, or a lot of them. Okay, and then I come on up. Let's do the other side. So now I have my left shin parallel to the short edge of my mat. My right leg is at a 90-degree angle. My left shin and my right thigh are parallel. This good moment to pause and remind you it is common to have asymmetry. So if the other side felt easy, or maybe this side doesn't, No worries. We're going to meet our body where we're at, which is to say, after you flex your feet, toes toward your shins, maybe what you need to do is lean over to the left or lean left and forward so that this right hip is not screaming at you. You got to make yourself comfortable here. So I have been working on this internal rotation of my hips for a little bit, so I know I can sit here. And what I want to do first, once I get into position, is consciously relax my right hip. So I'm softening through my right hip, taking a breath or two here. And then I might slowly want to start to engage into that tissue